Larry, you recently donated to the University of Arizona Poetry Center's library collection more than 50 broadsides, books, and periodicals of American Indian poetry. Many of these are rare and hard to find. How did these works originally come into your keeping?
Back in the 1970s, I became interested in American Indian writing and came to Tucson in 1974, and here at the university made a connection with a group of Indian students who were starting a literary magazine called Sun Tracks. I think it was really an exciting time, and one of the resources that we had was a group called the Coordinating Council of Literary Magazines, CCLM. And so many of the items that I donated to the Poetry Center recently are items that came to me as exchanges, that we would send them our magazine and they'd send us theirs, kind of thing.
One question I have is about a publication like The New Trail. What can you tell me about the context of how that book would have been produced?
I would guess that the publication was produced, in the print shop at the Phoenix Indian School as a project for all the students. This idea that poetry is a way to a way in to a literate life for people who are regarded as not literate is a pretty interesting one, and it's echoed in Ophelia Cepeda's efforts to be involved in the revitalization of the A'adam language by running poetry workshops, as she did in the 70s in the summers as part of the American Indian Language Development Institute. They would do poetry workshops in the native languages.
I feel in these publications from the 1970s and the 1980s, much more student voice, not only in the works represented, but also in the editorial process. What were those decades like?
Late 1960s, early 70s, as I've mentioned, often referred to as a watershed moment in something referred to as the Native American Renaissance, and the idea that supposedly vanishing Indians hadn't vanished, right? And in fact were growing and being creative and productive. And between 69-70, Momaday's Housemaid of Dawn, and say 1992, the Columbian Quincentenary, that period, there's just this explosion of writing. A lot of it in small presses, chapbooks, literary magazines, an explosion of writing by young American Indian writers, and I think it continues to this day. But those were the years when it was building, and I think you get a sense of how it was building when you look at some of these small press publications that we have now in the library.